We are live on Facebook. Here we go. Welcome everyone to our first Friday Facebook Live. This is Ingrid Edstrom on the Ask a Bookkeeper show, and I'm here with Penny, the Practical Professional.
Hi everyone!
And my wonderful business partner at Polymath, Vanessa Barrett. And our special guest today is Kristen Nies of Girl Friday's office, and she specializes in accounting for restaurants, bars, nosh shops, and other fantastic eateries. Welcome, Kristen. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Penny.
Did you say nosh shops?
Yes, it's a short way to say things like bakeries, wine shops, wine bars, things like that.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, maybe I'll start referring to Penny's Pies as a nosh shop. Come down to Penny's and nosh.
That's right. Just a snack.
Yeah. Nosh pie.
So we're really excited to have Kristen on this month. Last month we had Audrey Blackburn of Blackburn Consulting. We were talking about riches in the niches for accounting professionals and why it is that accounting professionals need to choose an area to specialize in. And following that, we thought it was a really great idea to have Kristen on because Kristen specializes in accounting for restaurants and Penny has a pie shop. So we figured, hey, what better combination than to get some of Penny's questions answered from somebody who specializes in her industry. So yeah, Kristen, we would love for you to talk with us about some strategies that are specific to restaurant accounting.
Well, let's see. Penny, I've actually listened to a lot of the Ask a Bookkeeper shows, and I know that you not only provide pies to other restaurants, but your focus is really starting to be creating a cool environment for your customers to come and enjoy a piece of pie and a cup of coffee.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you really are sort of operating both as a bakery and as a restaurant or cafe.
Right.
Which, go ahead.
No, that's it. Yeah, no, you're correct. Exactly.
So I think that the best thing that people who are operating in this space can remember is it's really tough and it's 24 hours. And for financial professionals that are serving this niche, you might have to do things a bit differently to serve this population well, but if you do, they're one of the most loyal populations there are.
Ooh, and by that population, you mean the people who come into the store, not necessarily the wholesale customers?
No, I mean actually the pennies, the people that run bakeries, food and beverage people.
Yeah.
It's a very busy industry, as you know. So you might have to do things a little bit differently as a bookkeeper. And as a shop owner, you might have to tweak your processes a little bit, but if you tweak those two things together, it becomes a lot easier for math people to talk to food people.
Right. Oh, that's good. Well, one thing I do have to say, Kristen, is I feel a little bit nervous on this call because I feel like you're going to know a lot more about this restaurant business than I will. But I suppose that's kind of the point, huh?
No, you know more than you think you do. Everyone who's ever been in a restaurant actually knows more than they think they do.
Oh, that's good advice.
Yeah.
That's a really common roadblock when any business owner is working with an accounting professional because we end up with a little bit of an impostor syndrome going on. The number one fear of every business owner is the fear of being called as a fake. Having somebody say, how dare you call yourself an entrepreneur in the restaurant industry when you don't know everything there is to know about running a restaurant or a bar or whatever the case may be. And you know what? There's no one that knows everything there is to know. And that's one of the important reasons why we need to be choosing niche specialties in the accounting industry so that we can learn as much as we can about a specific industry and really become experts so that we can help those business owners more effectively. And of course, they're always going to know about their specific business more than we do. They know who their target clients are. They know the nuances, the daily ins and outs. But there might be some things that we can bring to the table that they don't know. And the first step to developing a really good partnership is to get that imposter syndrome out of the way and stop thinking about the fear. Just start thinking about how can we collaborate to greater effect and play together? How can we make this lots of fun and more profitable?
Absolutely. I almost feel like the best thing a person who's starting out in a niche, any niche, but particularly with restaurants, the best thing you can do is literally ask a local restaurant that you frequent if you can just sit in their office for a day or even a few hours, because you'll see the pace of work is extremely fast and extremely frenetic. And so then when you are talking to clients and saying, well, just put these numbers in the spreadsheet every day, you'll know how tough that is, how tough it is for them to stop and sit down and do that. I feel like most of what's most 50% of what is necessary to serve this population is actually to understand where they're coming from. They're by and large, they're an extremely generous group of people. They're in hospitality. They're more than willing to share everything they do with you. They just need someone to be interested in making it easier for them. That's literally half of what they want, is just someone to be interested. So they're more than willing to deal with your learning curve if you're willing to deal with their unique nature, unique workflow.
Wow. That's really like all interpersonal connection. You know, people just want to be listened to. People love talking about themselves, and having someone who actually pays attention and is willing to help is amazing. I can see that could work really well for you.
Yeah, and you know, this is actually a group that, you know, there's this big push about advisory. This is actually a group that's had their own bookkeepers and their own accountants for quite some time. There's a shortage, but they really depend on people with numbers. That leap to fixed pricing and having your bookkeeper be a business advisor and sort of speak into your business and work with you on goals, that's been going on for a long time in that niche. So it's not, they actually have a lot to teach us about how to provide service while still having boundaries, all fixed pricing, all those things. So I just love them. Sorry, you don't want me.
Yep, that's kind of the point. We got to work with the people we absolutely love.
Really
So
do.
with that, Kristen, I would love to ask you, because, you know, we've been working with Penny for quite a while in her pie shop.
Yeah.
And helping her. But, you know, of course, since we don't specialize in restaurants and cafes, there's probably some strategies that you can share with us that we just don't know about because we specialize in tours and activities companies. So what are some core ideas or strategies that you like to share with your restaurant clients?
Well, first of all, I like to get my restaurant clients out of the headspace of just looking at their financials monthly. There are some things that are valuable to look at monthly, but things like food costs and labor costs are actually better viewed on a weekly or 2-week basis, because that way you're comparing the same number of weekends to the same number of weekends when you do comparisons. Months tend to vary, and weekends are important in this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you sell more pies on the weekends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we ship out more pies during the week for the wholesale, but certainly the customers coming in, yeah, we definitely sell more. Fridays are big because people want to get pies, you know, for home over the weekend.
Exactly. And so that's the second thing I was going to say, knowing the way your business flows. There's probably a lot of overlap for some restaurants and bars to what you do, Ingrid, where there can be a seasonal aspect. I'm located in the greater Los Angeles area in Orange County, and a lot of my clients are right near the beach. So the summer might be very, very, very busy. And then we might have to make cash flow plans to get through the winter. So there's a lot of overlap there. We could probably share some tips and tricks with each other on how to do cash flow planning for that kind of thing. So, but finally, the best metric you can look at as a restaurant or bar owner is your prime cost. And that is just your cost of goods sold, your food, ingredients, straws, paper napkins, things like that, plus your labor costs, which means not just your wages, but your workers' comp, your employee benefits, your uniforms. Those two things together are less than 62%. Chances are you're going to be successful. And not a lot of people know that metric, including restaurant owners. Gives them a way to focus in on, like, what can I do that will move the needle and help me be a healthy restaurant?
Right. Well, and having a metric to aim for is much better than just going for, earn more money than you spend.
Exactly. And with all the technology out there, there's a way to keep a handle on those particular costs as you go along on a weekly basis, so that at least you're dialing those in when you can still do something about it, rather than 30 days later after you get financials from your accountant.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's really cool. So within the tourism activities industry, the target margin really varies depending on the type of company, because a walking tour is going to have a very different margin than a zip line or a safari company. So I'm curious, you said 62%. So how did you come to that magic number that's like you want to keep it below this threshold?
Well, it really does vary depending on the cuisine, and obviously fine dining is a lot more expensive food cost-wise than might be a pie shop. Also, the margins for wholesale are lower. The point is if you know your margin, if you know what you're trying to go after, and you make a priority to have that be your target and to be laser focused on that target, then as long as you're not overspending on advertising, your rent is stable, you have your other costs relatively fixed, then you're going to do fine. The point is sitting down with someone who knows numbers and knows those other things to really plan out when you're making your menu, when you're doing your pricing. Hey, we have to have this labor and food cost be this because our fixed costs are X, Y, and Z. So working backward from a break-even standpoint is important. Also, menu mix is important. If you want to give something away that you know the cost is cheap. If you want to comp something out or give an extra, don't price everything on your menu at 25% food cost. Some of the stuff price at 30. Some of the stuff price at 20. Your more high-end stuff, you might be the draw, but at the end of the day, people might just buy a lot of chocolate chip cookies or whatever. And that might be below food cost for you. So you're making, the mix is supposed to be your target, not necessarily every individual thing. Can you imagine if you went into a fast food store and said, oh, everything's priced at 25% food cost, French fries would be like 90 cents. And that doesn't make sense if the hamburger's $5.
Right. Oh, exactly. Yeah, sometimes we'll have, what we do is we have sets of pies that are all in classifications that are, sell for a certain amount, like $12.99 for all of these berry pies, and then the more complex ones that have more ingredients might be more and stuff like that. But yeah, it's true that a blueberry pie and a raspberry pie don't cost the same to make, but they're roughly in the same classifications, so I can sell the same.
And having a menu just makes sense to a customer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you don't want it to be too complex.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Kristen, you had some kind of visual aids that you wanted to show us. Do you want to walk us through those?
Oh, this is just some information on prime costs, which is the most important metric. It's made up of cost of goods sold and labor costs. And this is it. It's just loaded labor, which means labor that includes workers' comp, payroll taxes, payroll processing, all that stuff. And your cost of goods sold as a percentage of your total sales. That's total sales after sales tax is taken out and before comps are taken out. So you can hit this number, chances are you're pretty good. It could be that you have really high rent and you have to push this one down, but basically this is the number. A lot of people say, hey, to really thrive, you need to be at 60%. Probably true. But if you're just starting out, this is a good goal. I say if you can knock a couple of percentage points off every couple of months until you get to this place, that's fantastic. The thing I like about prime cost is, let's say you have really, really, really exquisite pie selection and it's really expensive to make and you don't want to price out your customers. You might have a higher food cost. You might have a food cost of 30%. As long as that means that you really are efficient with your labor, you can have a lower labor cost of 32% and still make this metric work. So it's flexible in that way. Wherever you need to put your extra dollars, be it in the food cost or in the labor, you can do that.
Right.
Fantastic.
Wow. And if a pie like you're talking about that maybe doesn't have as much of as it has a lower margin on it, that can be something that maybe I just sell as a special once in a while rather than having it on the menu all the time.
Exactly, and that kind of thing can create buzz. If you have something that's only available once a month or every other, if you had a pie of the month every month and just advertised about, okay, this pie is limited time, you might have people coming in only on that day just to get that pie. And if you schedule those kinds of events with times that are usually your downtimes, then suddenly you're taking advantage of your labor more. So Tuesday from 5 to 7, that's it. We've got all these pies. Let's come and get the pies. And you get some buzz and you get some activity around it, even if people don't come in there. You know, a lot of times people say, oh, I'm so not busy on Tuesday or Monday, maybe I should just close. And the reality is that, yes, you may not be busy, but the minimum wage you spend keeping open, you're already paying for rent, right? So the minimum wage that you keep staying open, you don't know who's walking by that shop and seeing you're open and making a mental note, oh, I want to stop in there on Friday or Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
So if you think of it as an advertising cost rather than as a loss on the day, and think about your sales in terms of a week rather than an individual day, it's a lot less harrowing.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. That's a really good point, because I notice whenever I'm walking by a store that happens to be closed, it's almost like reverse advertising.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a weekday and they're closed, oh, maybe they're going through some kind of struggles or something like that.
Yeah, and you don't want to spend your valuable time circling back around.
Right.
You're open, you know.
Yeah. So here on the Ask a Bookkeeper show, we like to make sure that we're really explaining terms and jargon and acronyms and things like that. Kristen, can you explain for our listeners that might not know what loaded labor means?
Sure. So labor cost typically is your wages that you're paying to employees. Loaded labor, some people call it something else, and it's escaping me what it is, but it's basically your labor that you're paying in wages, but also all the associated costs that go along with that. So employer payroll taxes, workers' comp you need to keep on employees, maybe uniforms that you're keeping, that you're buying for employees. Sometimes people include employee benefits. And then depending on your particular structure of your particular company and how much you're relying on outside labor, for instance, I do books for a club, and part of what they have as a labor cost is them paying bands to come in and do shows. So are those employees? No, but it's a significant expense for them, and to leave it outside of that metric would be sort of false advertising. It would make their labor look a lot better than it actually was. So it's just about the people that make your business work on a daily basis and all the costs associated with keeping those people happy.
Got it. Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So we have actually a pretty cool, fun, if you're interested, opportunity, because Charissa is also on the call. Charissa joined us last month when we were talking with Audrey about niches, and we had a really fun conversation because, Charissa, it sounded like you were interested in niching potentially in cafes. Do you want to unmute? Do you have any questions for Kristen while we've got her on the line? Because this could be a really fun, great opportunity to learn how to really get into that niche. Oh, let me take you off mute. Here we go. Unmute. There we go.
Yeah, I would have a question for Kristen. You work mostly in bars and nosh and cafes, and I know a coffee shop is a bit different. Is that 62%? Do you think that would cross across the lines into coffee shops as well?
I do. You're doing a little bit, I think it would as much as it would apply to Penny. You're doing a little bit more on the manufacturing side. Like, for instance, at a restaurant, chances are things are made to order. The coffee shop, you might be pre-making pastries, pre-ordering, things like that. So it's going to function a little bit like retail and a little bit like hospitality. But for the most part, I do think it's a healthy place to start. The key is sitting down with those owners and really figuring out, okay, what are your biggest expenses? Because there might be some things with them that don't exist anywhere else. And that's actually true for any business. You know, there's always funky stuff that each individual business does that's kind of different than the rest. That's part of what makes a lot of independent businesses successful. So yeah, I think it's within spitting distance. How about that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we also, in the background, just want to say hello to the attendees who are joining us. We've got Terry Barron Singer, who is my husband's mother. And also Ben Blankswade, who I want to point out and say hello. He is our intern here at Polymath. So we're very, very excited to be showing him this crazy thing that we do once a month. All of the fun things that can happen in an accounting office. Woohoo! So Kristen, any other ideas or questions coming up? And we can go ahead and start wrapping up before the hour.
Oh gosh. I can't stress enough how I know that sometimes in the accounting world, we think of the, the food and beverage industry as sort of the redheaded stepchildren, along with nonprofits and construction.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with redheads.
No, there's not. Clearly there's not. But I do think that there's such an opportunity there because it's a group that is so open to learning and open to letting you and your expertise guide them. They have enough to do. They are looking for help and guidance.
Yeah.
Is that going to be true across the board? No, but on the whole, they're looking for experts to do what they do best. So that because chances are most of these, it's particularly the independents, are doing it out of like pure love. They did not open their cafe or their coffee shop to fanny around with paperwork.
Right.
They don't, who cares?
Yeah.
They want to sell coffee. So you can be a superhero to these people. And guess what? When you go and visit them, which sometimes, that's the other side, sometimes you'll need to do things a little bit differently than you might normally. But when you do, they give you free coffee. And they always are trying to feed you, like,
That is so much fun. We got to go visit a client of ours who has a cafe up in Klamath Falls, and we hadn't actually been up there because Klamath Falls is about an hour and a half away from where we are here in Ashland, Oregon. And that was the first thing when we walked in. They're like, "What do you want to drink? It's on us."
Yep, it's true. It's great. They're very, on the whole. I mean, obviously, generalizations don't always fit. That's why they're general. But on the whole, it's a really just generous and earnest group of people.
Yeah,
and
it's people who like to connect by taking care of each other. And
right.
People, that's what they do.
That's right.
Oh, I have a question for you, Kristen. So we're kind of nerds here at Polymath. We love software. Do you have a favorite point of sale system for restaurants? A favorite, whether it be quick service or table service? Do you have one that you really enjoy working with?
I think it really depends on the business. I have, I'm really loving Lavu lately. I like POSs that think about accountants and think about what the bars or restaurants actually need. So versatility and being able to dial in remotely and see what's going on with your business is so incredibly important. And then having an integrated connection between QuickBooks or Xero or whatever, so that you're not bogged down by data entry. And if you're paying X amount of dollars to a bookkeeper, you're not paying for them to do data entry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tools out there that make a lot of things easier for bookkeepers with regard to restaurants. It's starting to make the turn in the last year. But the good news about that is that it actually requires that the restaurants and bars and bakeries and cafes themselves be more involved in their own process, which means they start to take ownership of it. And the best apps are the ones that actually give those restaurants, bars, cafes, feedback immediately, so that they start to zero in on some aspects of their numbers, and it becomes more of a second language for them rather than just, something crazy that they don't know about.
Absolutely.
That's something that Ingrid and Vanessa at Polymath educate a lot on as well. And that actually leads me to a question for you, Kristen, about restaurants. I'm sure you don't take every restaurant owner that comes to you what are the ones that, like, what are the qualities that you look for in a client? And also, what can those clients do to help prepare or be a good client for you?
Well, I have a particular focus on independent restaurants. I know the particular tendencies I have when I work with people. I tend to not have good boundaries and not be able to put on the brakes. So for me, working with independents is a little bit more of a collaboration, and that's what they need in their business. Other bookkeeping firms specialize in people that have franchises and have a more corporate structure. You might be an accountant that does stuff for people who have in-house bookkeeping teams and you're just doing taxes. So as many sort of personalities as there are out there, there are different niches even within restaurants. So I tend to deal with seasonal businesses that are independents. I like dealing with people that are involved owners, people that have been in the industry. I do deal with places that have outside investors, but I don't like to spend a lot of time explaining to non-restaurant people why restaurants' financials are different, particularly if they've been successful in another area of their life. Sometimes it's like butting my head against the wall, like, no, it's not like making movies. It's not the same. So,
it's not like in the movies. Is anything really like in the movies?
No. I like to deal with like food people. That's what I get out of it. Working in restaurants was my first language. Bookkeeping is my second language.
Nice.
So that's how I work.
So I have one more question. Working with food people so much, how do you stay so fit?
I do. I try and do yoga and stuff and everything like that. I'm actually married to a chef too. So it's, it's funny. You get spoiled about food and you tend to eat. I actually don't go out to eat a lot because, well, I have a chef making great stuff here, but you tend to really respect and take pleasure in really well-made food. And that's particularly true of working with independents. Chances are they're doing it for the love of food, so they're good food people.
Yeah. Well, and that's the important part, doing what you really, really love. And, that's one of the reasons why Vanessa and I focus on the travel industry, tours and activities. Travel and accounting is like chocolate and peanut butter to us. We love it. So I think we might have lost Kristen. She just froze. But that's okay because it's 11 o'clock and we are going to wrap up on time. So thank you so much, Kristen, for joining us. We had a blast, and thanks, Teresa, also for joining us, and to our attendees in the background, and to everyone watching us live on Facebook. This is Ingrid and Vanessa and Penny and Kristen and Teresa on Ask a Bookkeeper's First Friday Facebook Live. And be sure to tune in on First Friday next month. We'll have another great guest on the show. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll talk to you again soon.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Kristen.
Yay.
Bye.